Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Somtochukwu Ikewelugo and I'm an intermediate level software developer. And today you're going to be watching the first video of a series of videos which will take a deep dive into C# programming language. So I've been on a C# mentorship program, and it's actually a 9-week course that gives a deep dive into C#, and I'm currently on the 5th week. So I decided to do daily recaps of all I've learned so far on YouTube, because I believe that this would help anyone aspiring to learn how to code in C#. So without wasting much time, let's get into it. Alright, these are the course materials. As you can see, we are loaded. Every material for the 9-week of this program is here. So let's look into week 1. Okay, this is what we have for week 1. We have fundamentals of C# language, introduction, what is .NET framework and architecture, C# and .NET version history, how to download and install Visual Studio for C#, identifiers, data types, integer, character, boolean, double, float, decimal, enum, arrays, strings, variables, literals, operators, keywords, reserved words, control structures, if statements, and loops. Your first console application program, class, partial classes, structure, static, methods, method parameters, method overloading. There are also video resources that you could use to learn the .NET architecture, the .NET history, resources for basic C# language. So that's all we have for week 1. So what I just showed you is the curriculum for week 1. So now we are going to dive into the course material, the week 1 lecture. So let's dive into week 1 lecture. Fundamental of C# language. Introduction. C# is the general purpose modern and object-oriented programming language, pronounced as C#. It was developed by Microsoft, led by Anders Hejlsberg and his team with the .NET initiative. C# is among the languages for common language infrastructure. .NET framework. It is a virtual machine for compiling and executing programs written in different languages like C#, VB.NET, etc. .NET framework supports more than 60 programming languages, in which 11 programming languages are designed and developed by Microsoft. The remaining non-Microsoft languages are supported by .NET framework, but not designed and developed by Microsoft. Now, the main concept of .NET framework. You have the .NET framework, you have the common language runtime, you have the framework class library. Then under the common language runtime, you have the common language infrastructure, you have the garbage collector, and you have the just-in-time compiler, JIT. So under the common language infrastructure, you have the common language specification and the common type system. Don't worry about all this big English. We are going to go into this very soon. This is just an introduction. So the .NET architecture. This now goes into the common language infrastructure. You can see from the last slide is kind of the main guy here, the common language infrastructure. So the common language infrastructure has the VB.NET, it has C#, it has other .NET languages. Then there's the common language specifications, common type system, .NET framework class library, ASP.NET, WinForms, console, ADO.NET, .NET Remoting, Common Language Runtime. Don't worry, like I said, we're going to go deep into this. This is just an overview of what we're getting ourselves into. So now for the fundamentals of the C# language, we have identifiers. Identifiers. In programming languages, identifiers are used for identification purposes, or in other words, identifiers are the user-defined name of the program components. From this example above, you see what we have there, a very short code. Public class, GFG, open curly brackets, static public void main, you have a parenthesis, open curly brackets again, you have int x, then close curly brackets, close the general curly brackets. From this example above, your GFG there is the name of a class. The main there is the name of a method, while the x is the name of a variable. You can see the int that comes before the x there. It means that x is an integer. Integer x. So that's that. Then next, we have rules for defining integers in C#. The only allowed characters for identifiers are all alphanumeric characters. Let me go over that again. The only allowed characters for identifiers are all alphanumeric characters. That is A to Z, capital, small letters A to Z, 0 to 9, underscore. For example, geek with an @ sign is not a valid identifier in C#, as it contains the @ which is a special character. Then identifiers should not start with digits. For example, 123 gigs is not a valid C# identifier. Identifiers should not contain white spaces. Identifiers are not allowed to be used as keyword unless they include the @ sign as a prefix. For example, @ sign as is a valid, let me see what they said here. It's a valid identifier, but as is not because it is a keyword. Okay. Let me go over this again. Identifiers are not allowed to be used as keyword unless they include the @ sign as a prefix. For example, having a prefix, the @ sign before as, is a valid identifier, but using just as is not, because as is a keyword. Like I said, don't worry, we would go into all these keywords in C# and all the rest. So next, we have C# identifiers allow Unicode characters. Unicode is another concept like this. It's a word that means words, or it's words which are used as code that mean something else. You can browse a little bit on that. You will see what Unicodes are. They are just codes that are used to reference something or to mean something. You can browse that, Google that. Then C# identifiers are case sensitive. That's very important. They are case sensitive. Then C# identifiers cannot contain more than 512 characters. Note that. Then identifiers do not contain 2 consecutive underscores in its name, because such types of identifiers are used for the implementation. Don't worry, we're going to go into this. So variables. A typical program uses various values that may change during its execution. A variable is a placeholder of the information which can change at runtime, and variables allow to retrieve, manipulate the stored information. And this is the syntax of a variable. So first you have type, then you have the variable name, and you have is equal to value, or you have type variable name with your semicolon at the end. Note, you should always have the semicolon at the end. It shows that you have ended that line of code. Like, it's just like a full stop in C#. And let me shed more light to this syntax. For instance, the type that you see there could be an integer. It could be a string. If you've been coding for some time, there are integers, strings, decimal, floats, var. Yeah, some of you know what I'm talking about. So that type there just means integer, string, or what have you. Then the variable name could be your name, could be anything. Then it's equal to what is the value of that variable. If it's a string, is it someone's name? If it's an integer, is it a number? Yeah, what is the value? So in the third line there, where you have type, variable, names, and you have your semicolon there, what happens there is that you are just declaring the variable. You are not assigning it to any value. You are just declaring it to just say that yes, this guy is going to be here, but I don't know what to give to it yet, but it exists. You declared the variable, but you didn't assign any value to it. So that's that. Let's move on. So now let's go into data types and know what we have been talking about all this while. Data types specify the type of data that a valid C# variable can hold. This is what we have been talking about. C# is a strongly typed programming language. Okay, let's see why. Types of data types in C#. We have value data types. The value data type will directly store the variable value in memory, and it will also accept both signed and unsigned literals. Don't worry, we are going to go into all of this. The derived classes for these data types are system.valueType. Examples of this are integer, boolean, float, decimal, double. These are value data types. Then the reference data types. The reference data types will contain a memory address or variable value because the reference types won't store the variable value directly in memory. For example, class and object. What this means is that this kind of data types wouldn't store the value. They will just tell you where the value is, the memory address. They will just tell you where it is. So that's that about reference data types. Then you have pointer data types. The pointer data types will contain a memory address of the variable value. To get the pointer details, we have two symbols, ampersand and the asterisk. Don't worry, we're going to go into all of this. Then for the literals, not literals, this is a typo. The fixed values are called as literal. Literal is a value that is used by the variables. Values can be an integer, float, or string, etc. Literals can be of the following types: integer literals, floating point literals, character literals, string literals, null literals, boolean literals. These are values that are fixed. Then we have keywords stroke reserved words. These are words in the language that are used for some internal process or represent some predefined actions. These words are therefore not allowed to be used as variable names or objects. Doing this will result in a compile time error. Note, there is a total of 78 keywords in C# and they are mainly divided into 10 categories. Remember that when we discussed variables, we said that you could have any name for a variable. That's a lie. You can't have any name. You can have any name you want apart from the 78 keywords.